Desperado. That's the nothing personal word of the day. It is Wednesday, August 13th, 2025. And maybe we're talking about the movie from 1995, written and directed by Rich Rodriguez and starring Banderas and Salma Hayek. Maybe we're talking about Desperado. Maybe, or maybe we're just talking about the West, the NL West. Robert Rodriguez, go. I had the opening nailed and you, here we go. 4869. Desperado. That's the nothing personal word of the day. It is Wednesday, August 13th, 2025. I'm David Samson. Thank you for joining us. Desperado is both a song, it's both a movie. Robert Rodriguez, Salma Hayek, Antonio Banderas, fantastic movie. If you haven't seen it, a little Quentin, the Eagles, who could go wrong? Or maybe we're just talking about the AL West and the NL West, because these are desperate times here in the middle of August, as two things have happened simultaneously that no one thought to themselves could even be possible. Yeah, I thought Shohei Ohtani would hit a home run in 4 straight games. For sure. That's possible. That's probable. We're not even talking Babe Ruth anymore. We're talking the unicorn of the unicorns. To be a unicorn of a unicorn, I could argue negative. That means it's not a unicorn at all. But this guy, he just keeps delivering. But here's the thing. You can be the best player in baseball of all time, and you can be on a team that just doesn't win. How's that even a thing when you've got a payroll in the 400s? Well, for whatever reason, the Dodgers have only won 10 out of their last 23 games since that All-Star break. They're playing a team that the irony is they've got to crush. The Dodgers are playing the Angels right now. The Angels are looking across at Ohtani, and believe me, I've played the Tigers before. I know what it's like to look across the dugout and say, wow, I used to have that Hall of Famer, and now I don't. And you put a little tear in your eye, and then you look at your 25, 26-man roster, and you just go on with your day. Because that's life. That's baseball. So the Angels are playing the Dodgers. Now, it's not Cubs-White Sox. It's not Mets-Yankees. Because it's more like Clippers. No, it's not even like Clippers-Lakers. It's sort of like Clippers-Lakers. There's just a daddy, which has been the Dodgers, and then the Angels. The Angels are just, they're the Angels. They're arty. You've listened to our show. If you're new to the show, and this is not your 1,335th episode, then you may not know that we talk about Artie Moreno and talk about his involvement and the fact that all he wants is to be the Dodgers. Now, I wonder if he takes any satisfaction in beating the Dodgers. You can bet your sweet Bippy he does. But then when the series ends, he's back to being the Anaheim Angels of Los Angeles, and the Dodgers are still the kings of LA, the kings of revenue, basically the king of all they see, Yertle. But while it's happening, you feel great. And the Angels just have the Dodgers number. They've beaten the Dodgers 5 times this year for the first time in a season since 2010. That's 15 years ago. So by beating them 5 times, it's pretty major. And then doing it after you've lost Ohtani. Sort of like the Yankees beating the Mets and how good that would feel for Juan Soto having gone from New York to New York. And Juan Soto is no Ohtani. When Ohtani goes from Anaheim to Chavez Ravine, believe me, it's a thing for the Angels. So, Angels, Dodgers, a tight race because of San Diego, who we're going to get to. And all of a sudden, Ohtani is on fire. He's pitching well. He's hitting well. Home run, as we said, in 4 straight games. But guess what? What does it add up to? Another Dodger loss. And now the Padres, who were 9 games back on July 3rd, find themselves TIED. That quickly it can happen. It's been a month plus 10 days. What does that sound like? A month plus 10 days. Do you know where we're going to be in a month and 10 days, roughly? about the end of the season. So it is completely possible that the Padres could win or lose this division by 9 full games. That's how much time is left in the season. What it took for the Padres to catch the Dodgers is what's basically left this year. Will the NL West completely go upside down and the Padres win this division by 9 games? I think not. Not even a wait to see. Not even a nothing. Not close. But do I think this is a division race that's going to last the rest of the season this tight with no one going up or down 3 games? I think so, because while the Dodgers have struggled and they've been mortal, ordinary, nothing like what we thought when they left Japan 2-0 with a gambling scandal, thinking they were 160 games away from the first ever perfect season. Those are fleeting thoughts, and now they've disappeared completely. The Padres are building a team the way A.J. Preller builds it. Let's go. It's B to the W, baby. We are going to do this. We're going to go in. Then we're going to go in more. And then we're going to do something insane, which I love. Build a bullpen, which you need. We're going to make it so impossible to score at the end of games that teams are going to freak out in the beginning of the game trying to score off the starter, which means they're going to get down on the knob. They're going to get desperate. They're going to lose their 2-strike approach. They're going to lose their situational hitting. And then on top of that, they're going to say, oh, panic. We have 3 more innings to score. That's the benefit of a great bullpen. And what the Padres have done, kudos. But after all this time, after now we've got a race in the NL West that's tied, first time since Friday the 13th of June that the Dodgers have not been alone in first place. Think about that. That's 2 months. But what do we have coming up? Because the baseball scheduling gods somehow, sometimes, things just happen and you think to yourself, it's destined for greatness, perfection. The Dodgers and the Padres play each other 6 times. 6 times in the next 10 days starting August 15th. That's awesome. Now, before you think to yourself, well, that's going to decide the division, make sure you do the math. If you go into a 6-game series in 10 days in a tie, we can all agree that if one team wins 2 out of 3 twice, which is hard to do, then they'll have a 2-game lead at the end of that stretch, assuming the middle 3 games don't matter. But in the 6 games against Dodgers-Padres, if one team or the other goes 4-2, all they have is a 2-game lead, and you're not even into September yet, which means we've still got a race. Is it possible someone goes 5-1? Unlikely, but if someone goes 5-1, it's only a 4-game lead. The only scenario where this 10-day stretch where they play each other 6 times, where we will come out of it saying, that's the end of that, that's if it's a double sweep. And I would tell you, Coca, that if we can call our friends at DraftKings and do the odds right now of either the Padres or the Dodgers doing a double sweep in the 6 games they play, then I would tell you if you're not getting like 3,000 to 1, then don't do it. Because the odds of a double sweep, which means either the Padres win 6 or the Dodgers win 6, are teensy-tiny. Keep in mind, the other reason why these 6 games matter is when you are understanding how the playoffs work. Let's say the Dodgers and Padres are tied at the end of the regular season. Remember our talk between the Blue Jays and the Yankees? Do you remember when I told you that when it looks like the Yankees are 6 games behind the Blue Jays, they're really 7 games behind the Blue Jays? Because the Blue Jays won the season series against the Yankees. And so if it ends in a tie, the Blue Jays win the division. So the Yankees, which, by the way, they're still clinging onto a playoff spot, even after dominating the Twins yet again, inescapably true. But the Yankees have to finish a game ahead of the Blue Jays. Well, the Dodgers and the Padres, same thing. There won't be a game 163. Whoever, if there is a tie at the end of the season, whoever won the season series will win the division. The Dodgers right now are 5-2 versus the Padres this season. Now, after these 6 games, If the Padres win 4 out of 6, do the quick math. It's still Dodgers up 7-6. That's with the Padres winning 2 out of 3 twice. If the Padres sweep, that means obviously they're up in the season series 8-5. If the Dodgers sweep, forget it. If the Dodgers just lose 2 out of 3 twice, they're good. If the Dodgers win 2 out of 3 twice, they're good. So the Dodgers are not going anywhere. The Padres are not going anywhere as it relates to the wild card. But in terms of the division, just pay attention where we are, and we'll keep monitoring over the course of these next 6 games that start Friday. But don't forget the all-important tiebreaker. Did you see what's going on in the AL West? Because you can't do NL West and not AL West if the whole theme of your show is Desperado. Are you paying attention to the fact that the Mariners have caught the Astros? Anything? Are we realizing that, yeah, the Mariners, with their unbelievable moves at the trade deadline, getting the hitter that everybody was desperate to get, they had to have him. Give me Eugenio Suarez. Just give him to me. Get him up to the Pacific Northwest. And the Mariners have been on a tear. They caught the Astros. They've won 8 straight games, 10 out of their last 11. But here's the thing. Suarez, sorry, he's like a guy in the lineup where, he may get hot. I sort of worry that he may get hot. But God, does he stink right now. He is like batting below a hundo since he got traded to the Seattle Mariners. And you may say that means that's a bad trade. Well, we're not evaluating the trade after 2 weeks. That's number one. Number two, if the team wins and ends up winning the division or going deep into the playoffs, then every move you made is fantastic, regardless of whether the move you made was fantastic. That's 2. 3, when you are looking at a player's stats, you have to evaluate what he does to people around him. So if Cal Raleigh has all of a sudden gotten hot and extended the record that he now has, Coca, am I right, 45 home runs, some ungodly number for an everyday catcher, that is he now getting hot because of the existence of Suarez in the lineup? How does it all work? When you are following a team every single day, you understand that when you pencil a name in a lineup, while you want that player to be hot, you want all players to be carrying the team, you recognize that during the course of a season, there are different parts of the lineup that are hitting on all cylinders at different times. What you need to win a ring is to have everybody play well at all times, all aspects, hitting, pitching, starting, bullpen, etc., defense. But even then, you'll go back and look at a World Series box score, and you'll have 4 of your players in the lineup hitting 200, and yet you won the World Series. So we are not solely focused on the performance of Suarez as a correlation to the success of the team. As a matter of fact, it's been an inverse correlation so far, and that's just fine for Jerry DiPoto and just fine for Mike Stanton, the owner of the Mariners, and so exciting for Ichiro and everyone else up in Seattle, because it certainly seems that unlike the Dodgers and the Padres, where I could argue while the Dodgers have not been playing well, it is impossible for me to believe that the Dodgers are going to sink and fade. But is it possible that the Astros are going to do that? Is there a scenario where you see the possibility of the long season catching up to a team that has had injuries, plenty of injuries? They've had plenty of changes in their team, having traded Kyle Tucker and their replacement got hurt, Paredes, having had Alvarez out with an injury, middle of the lineup guy. So their lineup's totally different. And then you realize that, well, at least they've got a good back end of the bullpen until you open up the news and see that Josh Hader, shoulder inflammation, guess what? He's on the injured list. They just put him on. Now, when a closer complains of a little shoulder, something, and yesterday I didn't get to it on the show, but it would have been one of the easiest wait to sees of all time. There has never in my career, 18 years, not one time. And this is not hyperbole. When a bullpen arm walks into the training room and says, I've got shoulder soreness, I have shoulder tightness, and the trainer and the doctor call me and say, we are taking Mr. X to an MRI. Not one time did that not lead to an injured list appearance. Not once. How could I not have done that, Coca? It was the easiest way to see of all time that Josh Hader would be put on the injured list. And now comes all the talk. Oh, he looks like he'll just miss the minimum. No problem. We'd always say that. Until you have to have surgery or some sort of something that's public that you have to disclose because you do. You always say, oh, we think he'll be ready. Josh Hader will not pitch again in August. They're lucky if he comes back before 2 weeks are left in the season, because when you've got a little shoulder something, you're looking at 30 days. That was always my rule when the doctor would call Coca. When he'd say, yeah, we got some elbow soreness. I'd be like, 30 or 60, just tell me, because it's never going to be 10. Now, if you can have a little tendonitis, a little soreness in the flexor, generally, it's going to lead to Tommy John, but sometimes the trainer, the doctor would say, David, don't you sweat it. This is looking like 15er. It's like a 15er. That's how they talk to me. It's a 15er. It's a 30er. Ooh, that's a 90. That's it. See you in spring. That was also the bad one. That's the worst one, of course, during the course of a season when the doctor just says, see you in spring. That was his code for OFTY. That's what I would say when I would call our owner. Out for the year. Is Josh Hader out for the year? I'm not saying he's out for the year. What I am saying is that shoulder soreness, given the torque, given the speed, velocity, the number of years he's pitched, thank God I'm not the one who gave him 5 years, $95 million, and here he is in year 2. Thank God. Although maybe the Astros aren't upset. Why would they be upset? They had him for a year and change, a little year and a hook. Well, meanwhile, the Red Sox crushed him last night, and I mean crushed him. I mean crushed him in a way that we didn't see this happen to any team yesterday. That's not true, actually. We saw it happen to the Pirates, but the Astros got crushed 14-1. And it's more noteworthy when a first-place team loses by 2 touchdowns than when a team that's going to lose 90 games, even though they have the best pitcher in baseball on the mound, loses by 2 touchdowns. But by winning, the Red Sox obviously stay trying to catch the Blue Jays. They stay a bit ahead of the Yankees, who obviously have the easiest schedule of all time whenever you can play the Twins, because they'll never lose to the Twins. So that division's exciting. The AL West is exciting. Everything. You know what, Coca? We can go 6 for 6 here, can't we? Maybe the least exciting division is the NL Central, because the Brewers simply don't lose. They won their 69th straight game yesterday. It is a record. No team has ever had a winning streak like this ever. The closest was the Chicago Cubs in 1935. That was an amazing one. But when you are looking at the 2025 Brewers, when you've got 2 winning streaks of 11 or more and your current winning streak is 69 games long, you're saying to yourself, that may end when Paul Skenes is on the mound, except it didn't. The Brewers crushed Paul Skenes like he was Mark Hendrickson. Sorry, Mark, love you, man. It's the first name that came to my head. Literally. No idea why that is. Congratulations, Mr. Alonso. Let me sit up straight for this, Coca. I want to get this exactly right, because I know that he and his agent are super excited because he had to sign the short-term deal with the Mets because Steve Cohen wouldn't pay. But now that Steve Cohen is all excited that things are going to get better, and he tweets that, and then all of a sudden the Mets crush the Braves, big whoop, 13-5. The offense just is dialed in all of a sudden. Way to go, Chavez. Way to go, Barnes. You are locked in as hitting coaches. David Stearns told you, not our hitting coach's problem. 1 game, 13 runs. But let's pretend that everything's fine. So we're just going to do a quick 2-minuter right now on Pete Alonso. Get ready. Counting down. 8, 6, 7, 5, 3, 0, 9. I would like to personally congratulate Pete Alonso and Scott Boras for making Mets history in their 13-5 win over the Atlanta Braves yesterday. Pete Alonso became the Mets' all-time home run leader when he clubbed his 253rd career home run in the third inning. He would homer again in the sixth inning, therefore having been overheard in the dugout after the second home run saying the words, cha-ching! Thank you, Coco. It's really great. Actually, I'm happy for him. Do you know how many? Here's a little trivia question. If you're going to the bar and you want to win trivia and you want to get like free schnick schnacks or something, can you name every player who's active, who is a current home run leader of a franchise in Major League Baseball? Shocking how few. You think, oh, I would think that we could come up with 20 names. It's not the case. Pete Alonso is active and is the career home run leader of the Mets. That's one. Can you name another? Manny Machado is active. He's the career home run leader of the Padres. That's two. Mike Trout is active. He's the career home run leader for the Anaheim Angels of Los Angeles. That's three. Can you name the fourth? Come on. You've got this. Hi, my name's David Samson. I used to be the president of the Giancarlo Stanton-led Miami Marlins. Yes, Giancarlo Stanton has not been with the Marlins since 2017. MVP year. Way to go, buddy. He's still the career home run leader of the Marlins. That's four. That's it. That's pretty amazing, actually. Lest you think it, Mets land, and this goes out to Coca, Gramps, and anyone else who is always despondent about the Mets, thinking that the other shoe is going to drop, which it normally does. Not everything was rosy yesterday, even with that 13-5 victory. Very important offseason signing for your amazing first start of the season starting rotation when you were going to also then get Minaya and Montas back. Remember when you gave him like $34 million over 2 years, and we were saying on Nothing Personal, that seems like a overpay for a number 8 starter. Well, guess what? It turns out that Montas is a number 8 starter, which is tough because in the big leagues, you only need 5. So Carlos Mendoza came out and met the media, and this was great, as though Carlos Mendoza made this decision. Do you think Carlos Mendoza, hold on, I'm getting a call. Please, 1 second. Hi, David Stearns. Good to talk to you. Yes, it's Carlos Mendoza. David, I'm just going to tell you, I'm meeting the media right now, and I'm going to pull Montas out of the rotation. All right, just so you know. Thank you. Take care. Bye-bye. Negative. That call may have gone the other way, except it would have been a meeting in person. They'd get together and say, hey, we got a Montas start coming up. And David Stearns would say, we got someone better. We're doing better. We're calling up one of our guys from Syracuse, for crying out loud, Meatloaf, because it can't be worse than having Montas. Put him in the bullpen at best. Let him be the long man. That's what we'd say. Have him in there. Let him, he can go multiple innings. Give him a couple days of blow rest after he pitches his last start, and then stick him out in the bullpen. No leverage. No leverage. You just wait and see. Do you like my wait and see about the Celtics transaction, Coca? And you're going to tell me I didn't have one. But if you watch The Sporting Class with Pablo Torre, the famous Pablo Torre, and John Skipper, and the infamous David Samson, then you would have heard me either there, or maybe on Nothing Personal, or maybe on the Dan Le Batard Show, or maybe anywhere else, talking about the Boston Celtics and how strange I found it that they had a plan. The Celtics, remember, they were sold for $6 billion, but then I told you that's not right. That number isn't correct because there's 2 payments. There's a payment now and a payment later, and the payment later is at a higher enterprise valuation, like above $7 billion. So I told you there's a guy named Bill Chisholm, not Jazz, Bill Chisholm, and he is going to take over for Wick. But you kept telling me, David, that's not so. Wick is going to be in charge through 2028. Wick is the guy. This is a true step transaction where Wick wants to be the one to run the team. And I said it doesn't work that way. You don't put in a couple bill and then say, hey, you be the governor. Hey, you take care of control of the team. Hey, do me a favor. Just don't let me read anything in the newspaper about what we're doing. If we're not signing back Horford and if we're trading Porzingis and trading Holiday, I'd rather just not read about it. But if I do, I do. Maybe I'll just, watch Nothing Personal. I'll get what's going on with the Celtics. Do you remember when I told you that that seems super unlikely and everyone else in sports media and sports business was just saying that's the way it is, that Wick is going to stay in charge? Well, did you see the news yesterday? Guess what? Wick is gone. It's so obvious. Shams had a Shams, whatever they call it. I'm blanking right now. It's not a Shams bomb, I don't think, because I think that was Woj. Is it just a Shams epiphany or is it just a Shams X? I don't know what you call it, Coca. But Shams came out and said that according to multiple league sources, Bill Chisholm will be the Celtics governor because Wick will no longer stay on as governor as part of this $1 billion sale to Bill Chisholm. Sources told Shams and Ramona Shelburne, which is amazing because the plan, which everyone thought was going to happen, was for Wick to remain in control through 2028. And I thought to myself, well, that's a hell of a long time for a non-Jazz Bill to have control of something but not have control. So what happens? What happens is that it's a transaction like any other transaction. Does it mean that the team will not be paid for in installments? No, that's not a step transaction. An installment plan is just an installment plan. Think about when you buy a car. You get to drive the car off the lot, but you pay in installments. It's not like you can't do laundry when you pay for your washer dryer in installments. The step transaction's different. That's when you buy a little piece, A-Rod, then a bigger piece, A-Rod, then the biggest piece where you get control later on, A-Rod. That's a full step transaction. Here, Bill will get control day one, and he'll pay a big amount of money. But guess what? On day 730 or 1069, he will pay another sum of money. Installments. Why is this so important to me? Because you may think it's not a big deal. And the reason why it's important is that you remember how much Adam Silver can't stand the step transaction that happened in Minnesota because Glenn Taylor and Alex Rodriguez ended up fighting about who's doing what, when Glenn Taylor woke up one day and said, hey, I don't want to sell this for that price. I want to stay. Do you remember that? And it ended up in arbitration. Remember that? And now A-Rod and Mark Lowry, his partner, won the arbitration and are now the control people of the Minnesota Timberwolves. And Adam Silver said, I don't really love those step. Do you remember when Mark Cuban sold the Mavericks and I was the only guy? I don't love taking victory laps, but when things are this easy, I'm just going to take a victory step. Did anyone get that? If I had a studio audience, Stephen A. Smith is onto something. Why can't we do this in front of a live studio audience every day? Who wouldn't want to wake up at 7 a.m. and schlep on into a studio like the couch right in front of me? Hello, maybe we can just let like 5 people in per show, Coca. And then I could look at them and say, how am I doing? Like, are you smiling? Are you laughing? Remember when Mark Cuban, I'm going to run basketball. Sure you are, Mark. Oh, I had no idea Luka was traded. Why not? Because you're not running basketball. I shouldn't get this worked up over being right. It should just be expected. But I'm frustrated about things like this because I don't know much. But I know I love you, and that may be the only thing I know. When people tell you that the Celtics are a step transaction, just remind them it's installment, okay? And when in Boston you're saying, well, wait a minute, who is in charge of cutting the $500 million away from their entire tax and payroll bill? Then you say to yourself, oh, yeah, that wasn't Wick. That was Bill, because it was. And I'm not saying he's wrong because he was right. And here's what you're going to read soon, that the NBA unanimously voted to approve Bill as the new governor and transfer of power over to Bill from Wick. That'll be it. Let's do the review, Coca, please. Welcome to the review, where every day I watch a movie. I'm on the struggle bus. I need a good movie to watch. I need a good series to watch. I need something because I don't know what's going on. I want to love you all. I really do. I want to listen to all of your suggestions. But who in your right mind would have suggested Dangerous Animals to me? Why? Are you trying to make it like a threefer after having watched The Pickup and Jurassic Park, Jurassic World Rebirth? Dangerous Animals is a horror movie about a psychopath who kidnaps women and then forget raping them because that would be too, not screen worthy. He feeds them to sharks and tapes it and gets off that way. It's like half Silence of the Lambs, half Jaws, except I wasn't as much scared of the sharks as I was of the crazy guy, where I will never, never say never, that was silly, where I am reticent to do a boat charter again. Because you get on a boat, not that I do that often. As a matter of fact, I've done it twice in my life. But can you imagine getting on a charter, like thinking everything's amazing, things are rocking, things are rolling, and then all of a sudden you're kidnapped, my worst nightmare, handcuffed to a bed, not ideal, having to use a bedpan, oh my God, and then getting doused with chum and then hooked and put in the water like Steve-O, for crying out loud. Now, the woman in it I recognized from Yellowstone. I didn't recognize anyone else really in the movie. It's sort of entertaining, but it's disgusting. And it feels wrong that there could be this type of evil in the world. And so I felt it watching Silence of the Lambs, but the difference is when you're watching Anthony Hopkins and Jodie Foster, you know to yourself, wow, I'm watching two of the all-time greats. I'm watching an Oscar-winning performance. There will be no Oscars for Dangerous Animals. There will be no Razzies for Dangerous Animals. There'll be no nothing other than people will go see it and say, huh, that's a new way I didn't contemplate biting the dust. Give me another thing to worry about as an over-anxious guy. Because I am. I wouldn't suggest seeing it. I mean, if you're into that stuff, go ahead, but you better not be. I'm going to give Untamed a chance. I have a few episodes left. I'm going to watch them today, although I'm very busy today, and we'll hear about that in the second hour, maybe. I'm going to watch Untamed because if you can't watch Eric Bana in a series, then who are you anyway? I'll review that tomorrow. Maybe it'll be better. Nothing personal pick of the day. I am strong like bull. It takes some kind of guts to pick the Brewers to win a game. I mean, you simply have to be willing to get out on a ledge right at the end, hanging on by your fingertips, falling below anywhere between 8 and 10 feet to what's nothing but a padded mattress and maybe some fans that are blowing up to keep you from schwitzing. But to pick the Brewers takes courage, resolve. We took the Brewers over the Pirates last night. Big whoop. Actually, they were only minus 119. Do you remember when we told you how strange that was? Brewers minus 119, having won 10 in a row. And I have no idea why. Oh, yeah, because Paul Skenes was pitching. Does anyone remember the fact that Paul Skenes against the Brewers stinks? And against everyone else, he's simply magnificent? Paul Skenes against the Brewers has a 5.79 ERA. Paul Skenes against everybody else in the world has a 1.75 ERA. Are you aware that Andrew Vaughn, the reject from the White Sox, who, by the way, had a WAR that would make you jealous because the negative in front of it was so large that you could see it without your readers, gets sent over to the Brewers, and all of a sudden the guy is Gorman frickin' Thomas? Ben, I love you, Ogilvy? Come on. But he is. Do you know he has the 6th highest average in MLB since he became a Brewer and the 6th best OPS? Do you know what that means? That means he's been really good. He also has the 2nd most ribbies. Who cares about runs batted in? I do, because I like scoring runs. Call me crazy. I'm a run guy. I'd like to lead the league in OPS. I'd like to lead the league in average, but I'd like to never score runs and lose 100 games. Give me a small break, would you? God, the Brewers did me proud. We are 107 and 102. I'm sorry that the Pirates lost with Paul Skenes, but frankly, that was a good pick. Now, today's pick is a little strange. It's a little strange because you can't pick against a streak. The trend is your friend. So why am I taking the Orioles plus 118 over the Mariners? The reason is there's a little guy named Trevor Rogers. Now, not one of the twins, and yes, the same guy who was traded by the Marlins for Connor Norby and Kyle Stowers. You may recall, this is the same guy who was sent to the minor leagues by the Orioles last season after the trade because he was so bad he couldn't get anyone out. That guy. Then, you may recall that Connor Norby ended up being hurt on the Marlins and mediocre, and Kyle Stowers is this all-star man of the year. Let's extend him. Kyle Stowers was a throw-in. That trade was Norby for Rogers. Here's what's happened this year. Rogers has been nails. Rogers is one of the best starting pitchers in all of baseball. And the reason you don't hear about him is it's the Orioles who stink, but they were supposed to be so good. Their position players were supposed to be so good that you combine their lineup and you bring in a top of the rotation guy and you can challenge to win the AL East. And then it's not about the simulations because you have to actually play the games. And it turns out the Orioles put the in regression. But on any given day, on any given Wednesday, you put Trevor Rogers on the bump and you're going to get a win. Problem, they're playing the Mariners. And the Mariners don't seem to lose very many games. Like they've won 8 in a row. But Trevor Rogers, starting pitcher, getting 119, a plus 119. You bet your sweet bipsters. That's the nothing personal pick of the day. The Orioles over the Mariners. I'd like to make a rule. Hello, people. Woo. That's how we would say rule. If you are a current National Basketball Association player, currently employed, currently either employed by a team to be in management or employed by a team to put on shorts, tube socks, and a tight undershirt every day, 82 times, I would like to formulate the following rule. Do not talk about gambling during a podcast. Is it that hard? We already know DraftKings is a sponsor, very good partner. We know, my view, that DraftKings, the existence of DraftKings, actually helps the integrity of the game, doesn't hurt, and I've proven that time and time again. With the actions of DraftKings, with the actions of the NBA and the different leagues, with how they're better able to find nefarious activity because everything now is public and above board and the technology is fantastic. But here's what the NBA and DraftKings and David Samson cannot control. And believe me, those are 3 entities. 2 entities in a person, 3 men in an entity who like control. We cannot control when people like Michael Porter Jr. decide to go on a podcast and decide, you know what I think I'm going to do? Notwithstanding the fact that his brother, Jonte Porter, was banned from the NBA for a gambling scandal, notwithstanding that, we would like to tell you that we can't control when Michael Porter gets a microphone, puts the green button on, looks at the co-host, and says, listen, think about it. If you can get all your homies rich by telling them, yo, bet $10,000 on my under. This one game, I'm going to act like I got an injury. I'm sit out. I'm going to come out after 3 minutes. And they all get a little bag because you did it one game. Yikes. Now, Porter said after that, that is so not okay. But some people probably think like that. They come from nothing and all their homies have nothing. Let's take a minute here, please, before I lose my mind, which I'm feeling like I want to. Because when you meet the media or you're on a podcast, whether there's one person listening, and you know this, or a million people listening, it makes no difference. Because when you put something out there There's a chance that only one person was listening, but then after that, 1,000,000 people will listen. There's a chance when you talk that if 1,000,000 people are listening, that it'll be so bad that the total number of people who will always listen and never listen to what you said is 1,000,000 people. All of those things are possible. So if you're Michael Porter, you can't say to yourself, this was a little podcast, big podcast. You can't. Because when you talk about gambling, it's going to get picked up, especially given what your last name is. And when you start the conversation by saying, hey, think about it. It's super easy to do this and give a bag to my homies. It doesn't matter that you follow that up by saying, oh, but I wouldn't do that. It's bad. Because here's a little hint for all of you, and no matter what business you're in, no matter what relationship you're in, it's never a good argument, even lawyers, for anybody, where you say X, Y, and Z, so illegal. You can't do it. You'll be punished. I wouldn't do it. There are certain things that you just don't talk about at all, even with the caveat of I wouldn't do it, or I don't do it, or I haven't done it, or I haven't seen it. Because why it is that you bring it up to start with does nothing to the listener but make them question the verity of what you said following. Everybody's looking at Michael Porter today and saying, you say that you wouldn't do it, and you say it's not okay, but man, it sure as heck fire sounds like you would do it. It sounds like that'd be something that you'd like for your homies. Here's the thing. When you put something into the universe, sometimes it sticks. Michael Porter's going to have a problem. And the problem is that the NBA is paying attention here, to say nothing of the governor of Ohio. But the reason the NBA is paying attention is that this whole prop bet situation, this whole thing that happened in baseball with the Guardians who have made it through the rain and they have figured out a way to win games. And obviously in baseball, 2 out of 3 ain't bad. The fact is that leagues are paying attention. There are groups of people hired. Their whole job is to listen for things like this, of players saying things like what Porter said, investigating what things like Porter has said, and then figuring out if Porter is in any way involved with anyone who's made any penny on anything Michael Porter or anyone around Michael Porter's done. And I don't mean his brother. I mean him specifically. They're looking at game logs. They're paying attention to everything now to see, is there a chance? Did he ever hit an under? When he did hit an under, was there any activity? And they'll call DraftKings. They'll speak to the people in Vegas. Was there any sort of weird activity that you may have found? You're inviting it. Why? A, you shouldn't do it. But B, even if you're not doing it, which you may be doing, why invite the scrutiny? What's the upside? All of a sudden, that podcast, which I can't even remember the name of, is going to get more listeners, more platform? Forget it. You know what else you should forget? Forget building your team with players who are more focused on what they're going to do post-career or what they're doing outside of work. Take my advice. A team full of Travis Kelces is a team that won't win. Having a Travis Kelce and a Taylor Swift, obviously, you can win with that. And I am not. This is my pre-Travis Kelce conversation. I want to get this out there. So clip this separately just so people have it, Coca. 4869. What I'm about to say about Travis Kelce is with the full understanding that he is a Hall of Fame tight end, one of the best of all time. I am fully aware of the jewelry that he has and the greatness that he possesses. Okay? That's the proviso. That's the thing on sort of, that's the picture of the sick person on the pack of cigarettes in Europe. That's the thing on aspirin, Diet Coke that you're going to get, whatever you're going to get. That was my caveat. And here we go. Come on, Travis. Are you a podcaster or a player? I think it's great that you're having Taylor Swift on your podcast in the Heights tonight at 7 p.m., where people are happy to tune in, except only if they've watched and engaged with Nothing Personal First and the Levitard Show and Meadowlark Media and all associated shows of Meadowlark Media. But once you've done that, feel free to listen to In the Heights, because if you're a Taylor Swift fan, then guess what? You win. Taylor Swift will be a guest on In the Heights and announce. In the Heights may not be the name of the show, by the way, because that's a play by Lin-Manuel Miranda, which is Into the Heights. In the Heights. I'm having a moment here, Coca. What's the name of the Kelce podcast? Do we not know it? It's got to be somewhere in my head. New Heights. I'm thinking Broadway. Why would I be thinking Broadway? Why is Broadway on my mind? But that's not what I'm here to talk about. I'm here to talk about Kelce and what he came clean with yesterday. It was amazing. He said that he's been thinking about his play and the loss in the Super Bowl to the Eagles. And Kelce said, this is a quote from him. He said, I think it might have slipped a little bit because I did have a little bit more focus in trying to set myself up. Opportunities came up where I was excited to venture into a new world of acting and being an entertainer. Yes, Kelce was in Happy Gilmore too. Okay. And yes, he is hosting a new show for Amazon, Are You Smarter Than a Celebrity? And yes, he hosted Saturday Night Live. That's amazing. But here's the thing. Your first responsibility, don't ever forget it. We would say this to our players all the time who were super popular, super hip, super in. We'd say, just remember, you are only as in as people associate you with greatness. If you want to be an entertainer, I'm in, you got to retire because you've earned it. You've won enough that what you can do is leave football and you can go into acting. You can go into professional dating of unbelievable singers who are releasing new albums. You can do all of those things and no one will be unhappy. Here's what you can't do. You can't do a little nisht and a little pish here and a little nosh there. You can't possibly be good at everything. You can try, but it's super hard. Now, I can be good at doing multiple shows because they're all shows. But imagine if I were trying to both be this for you every day and then also be a professional hockey player. I'm not sure I'd be able to do that. I don't think. At my advanced age and receding hairline. I'm not criticizing Travis Kelce. I think all players should set themselves up for their post-playing career. 100%. You have way more years not as a player, and you heard us talk about it with Tiki Barber yesterday. He's already been in media longer than he ever played football professionally. I love it. A second career for Kelce makes sense. He is outgoing. He's funny. He's whatever it is that Kelce is. He's got that it factor. But you cannot permit a player not to be 100% in on the team. That's where the bread is buttered while you are an active player. Kelce's not willing to admit he shouldn't have done all the extra stuff, and I'm not asking him. What I am saying is you've got to watch that as a team. As a GM or a president, you cannot let a player become too big for the team. And I don't mean famous because Kelce obviously is way more famous than Patrick Mahomes. But I'm talking about the reality that you have to watch to make sure the player understands that the focus has to be with the teammates. The focus has to be on the performance. Now, the Chiefs did make it to the Super Bowl, so you could say, hey, no matter how distracted Travis was, it didn't matter. But my response is, Travis said this himself. He's the one who told us that he was not all in. So what does it mean? Wait to see an official one, Coca. Travis Kelce will retire at the end of this season. You can book that. And we'll be right back with a second hour of So You Want to Talk to Samson. Welcome back to Nothing Personal. It is Wednesday, August 13th, 2025. Every Wednesday since June 2nd, we've done the same thing. If you're paying attention, which I know you are, hour two of Nothing Personal is a So You Want to Talk to Samson Wednesday.
You know what I want? I want to talk to Samson.
So You Want to Talk to Samson. That's from a movie called Half Baked. If you haven't watched Half Baked, I would encourage you to wait about 49 minutes and 30 seconds and then turn on Half Baked. You will laugh. And then you'll see a character named Samson and everyone wants to talk to him. So we figured, how great would it be to interact with our great studio audience of people coming to us from around the world? That's right, around the world. And dedicate an entire hour a week to your questions. And you can reach me in several ways. Number one, I'm on Twitter, at David P. Samson. DM me. I don't get all of them because there's a lot, but thank you. I see them occasionally. DavidSamsonPodcast.com. Send me an email. Buy some merch. Enjoy our website. Take a look at our tracking document. You can reach me that way. But we have a new system in place that just started in June. We have our own phone number. Now, tolls may apply. I can't believe as a lawyer I have to say that. Like you don't know? 631-377-4869. That number again is 631-377-4869. You know 631, maybe, maybe not. 377, that's easy to remember. DPS, that's me. 4869, hello. That's how we count in the show when we make mistakes, which we don't edit out ever. 631-377-4869. Leave me a voicemail. Your voice may appear on the second hour of the show on Wednesday. Spoiler alert, quite a few of you are going to make it in the show today. Except the first question for today actually was emailed to me. And this was sent to me a while ago, but I kept it for a rainy day. And today is that rainy day because it's dark and cloudy and gray. David, you always talk about discomfort and stomach aches and how you embrace them. What is the last thing you did that wasn't comfortable? You are right. I appreciate that question, and I saved it because you nailed me. I absolutely do things that give me a tummy ache at all times. I like feeling that discomfort because it means I'm doing something different. It means that this show, every day is different. Every day is live. Every day is without a script. Every day is without a prompter. Every day is with some sort of situation that happens that you can't expect, some glitch, and that makes me feel alive. It's like when you run a race and you prep everything, and then in mile 18, all of a sudden, something snaps and you have to keep going, or your stomach has some sort of thing going on that didn't happen during training, or you've got chafing in a place that you didn't realize could ever chafe, and you're like, my God, that hurts. Give me some Vaseline, wouldn't you please? They're not a sponsor. Thank you, Coca. Give me some petroleum jelly, wouldn't you please? So there's always going to be something. And so that feeling, if you don't embrace it, then what's going to happen? What's going to happen is that you're not going to make it very far because that is a feeling where growth lives. But the reason I'm bringing this up today is that right now, I'm live. We're here doing this. What you don't know is I've got a little pool going on in my back, underneath my arms, underneath my knees, and it's pretty cold in here, like around 6 degrees. But I am anxious because after this show, I am going in New York City, downtown, and I am auditioning for an off-Broadway play. That may sound completely crazy to you, and I understand because I'm not a professional actor. I'm a professional. But when I saw an opportunity to audition for a play, for a part that I wanted, I took it. Because what's the worst thing that can happen? I get rejected? Guess what? I got a call back. And today is the callback. I have been practicing and rehearsing lines because I want to try to memorize the scenes I'm going to be doing in the callback today, which you don't have to memorize them, but I'd like to memorize them. So I've been practicing like middle of the night and in between here, when your stomach is gurgling and you have to be somewhere for 8 minutes, you look at the script. I've been trying to get ready because how amazing would it be if I reported back to you that I got the part that I wanted and it is a 12-week run of discomfort as opposed to the 52-week run of discomfort that I do here with you every day? I'm adding stomach aches to myself because this stomach ache, while it still happens before every show, the feeling of discomfort when Coca says, we are 30, 10, 9, he counts down. That feeling of adrenaline that comes when it's 2, 1, and then Coca says, go. That's the equivalent to when you're in a play and they say 5 minutes to curtain. And all of a sudden, you know that you are going to be on stage and that you are without a net. I was in a play 10 years ago in Miami, and I would forget my lines every single night before the play would start. And I learned how to deal with that, where you look at your first line before you go on stage, and all of a sudden, all of it just flows right out of you, and you're in the moment, and you do performances. And that's what we do. We're performers. We're all performers. The question is, do we have a stage, and do we have an audience? How do I feel about doing this? I feel great because I feel terribly. Barely sleeping, totally out of my mind in terms of I want this so badly, but the odds are I'm going to get rejected because why wouldn't I? That's what happens in the world of Broadway, off-Broadway, the world of acting, the world of podcasting, the world of athletics, the world of widget making. Rejection is a part of what we do. It's what we have to be used to. I embrace that rejection. But man, I don't want to get rejected. So you want to know the last thing that I did that wasn't comfortable? Well, it's happening here in a couple hours when I take in front of the stage, in front of a director, a casting director, writer, whoever, producer, and I start saying, to be or not to be? That is the question. Of course, if I do that, I will definitely not get the part because what will be said to me is, excuse me, David, this is not Shakespeare. Sorry, that's not the scene we asked you to read. Now, for those of you paying attention, if you're watching this on the Nothing Personal with David Samson YouTube channel, are you looking at the hair? Have you noticed how long the locks are? And did you notice there's no product in it today? If you're not watching and listening, then you wouldn't notice that, but thank you for listening. Because part of what I've had to do for this callback is grow the hair out so I can look a little bit like the 1970s. How's it going? I think it's going fantastically. Now, listen, I put the widow in peak, but that said, not too shabby. Can I get away with a few grades? Shh, don't tell them. I got to look like I'm in my 30s. Can I get away with that? Botox, anyone? I won't do that because I would do anything for this, but I won't do that. Thank you for that question. I saved it for my ultimate discomfort. And here I am. Ultimate. But in the meantime, we have way more things to cover on this show. Give me a voicemail, Coca.
Hey, David. This is Sam from New York. I'm a loyal listener. I listen to you every day, and I love your show. I grew up in the Bay Area as a big-time Giants fan, and ever since the A's relocation that I've seen from afar while living in New York, it's really turned me off to the league. And I've seen some conflicting reports out there as to whether or not Manfred and the other owners will be open to an expansion team in Oakland, in the East Bay, specifically where I'm from. But I've also seen a report from another reporter that Oakland is excluded. Could you provide a little more clarity around that subject and that topic? For us Bay Area fans, we're in a grieving process. Thanks. Wish you all the best.
Well, thank you for calling. That's an outstanding voicemail. Just a quick question for you. Are you aware that to all Mets fans, if the Yankees disappeared, they wouldn't say boo? Or all Cubs fans, if the White Sox disappeared, or the other way around? I thought I heard you say, and Coke, I may have misheard it, Did he say he's a Giants fan who's grieving the loss of the A's? Now, I dig it because that means you're sort of an area fan. I just have never come across that. I don't think I've ever come across someone who I'd say, hey, who do you like in baseball? I like the Yankees and the Mets. Who do you like in baseball? I like the Cubs and the White Sox. Who do you like in baseball? I like the Dodgers and the Angels. I just haven't come across that. But maybe you do like both the Giants and the A's, but I don't want to get in the way or yuck on your grieving yum at all. However, if your game plan is that the grieving process will only end upon Oakland and the East Bay getting a team, I would suggest to you the following. I would suggest finding another exit ramp from the grieving process. Why? Because it ain't going to happen. Why? Why is it that Oakland is not a true expansion possibility? Now, they're going to be rumored because it is outstanding to have as many cities as you can in the running to get an expansion team. Because what you're doing is negotiating with every city, you're negotiating with every ownership group in every city, and you're trying to get the highest expansion fee possible so owners can get more money. Easy peasy. Why is it that Oakland is an issue? Because do you remember the San Francisco Giants, the team that you love? You remember the whole Buster Posey led, hey, we're great, and we traded for Devers, and everything's coming up roses. Remember that team? Remember that team that's fallen so far behind the Padres and the Dodgers that they can't even see them from there without some serious distance glasses? Yeah, that team. Do you remember the team that spent, and I'm talking about not days, not months, not weeks, but years, making sure the A's did not move to San Jose? Remember that? There's a reason why the San Francisco 49ers, thank you, Coca, 4869. There is a reason why the San Francisco Giants are just fine with the Aths being in both Sacramento and then in Vegas, because they would like all competition out of the market. They got enough problems. They've got to compete with the Golden State Warriors, who have obviously been a dynasty and a juggernaut of revenue and sponsorship dollars in that area. You got to deal with the NFL and the Niners, who are, as you would imagine, fantastic because it's NFL. No matter where that stadium's located, doesn't matter. So the Giants are just fine with not having other competition in the baseball space. As a matter of fact, what they won't tell you publicly, but what I know privately, is they were looking for this to happen for a long time. They were not super excited for a brand new ballpark right over the bridge. They were not super excited for that because they don't want any sort of anything getting in the way of revenue that they need to maintain, because their ballpark, and I love it, Pac Bell, which then changed its name 4 times, of course. When that opened in San Francisco, do you remember how epic it was? How epic it was to see kayakers in McCovey's Cove? How epic it was to watch Barry Bonds hit laser needles right over the right field wall? Do you remember that they were printing money and winning World Series after World Series after World Series? They were the talk of baseball. They were the apple of every other franchise's eye. And now, time's passed. They're way more ordinary than they ever dreamt they'd be. And the way to get more ordinary, which means that you're less extraordinary, is to have competition in the market. Therefore, baseball does not want to do that to the Giants. They don't want to create another situation which existed in San Francisco before Pac Bell opened, when they were threatening to move to Tampa before Tampa got an expansion team. Don't forget that the San Francisco Giants at Candlestick Park were a fledgling team of nothing. It was horrible. There were 4,000 people a game. It was Miami, for crying out loud. And then all the fortunes changed. They don't want to go back to that. So MLB is never going to grant an expansion team to Oakland, as much as Oakland may deserve it, as much as Oakland may have been promised it, which they weren't, as much as Oakland may dream of getting it one day. Not in my lifetime. NGTH. But you're a Giants fan, I thought. Thank you for the question. What else do we got, Coca?
Hey, David. This is Dean from Tampa. My question is around alliances or cliques that ownership groups, front offices or teams may have with each other, and conversely rivalries as well. Wondering how this may affect things like trades, votes, free agent bidding wars. Thanks. Love the show. Shout out Matt Coca. You're the best. Look forward to every Friday. Have a good day, guys.
Thank you for that. And you're 2 days away from a Friday with Coca. And I assume, because we have nothing scripted in front of us, that Coca didn't realize that I'd end the last question with Tampa, unless, of course, Coca's the producer, and he knew what I was going to say because he knows me so well that we then went on to Tampa. So, wait, that question wasn't about Tampa. That was just from someone in Tampa, I believe. The question was about ownership and cliques and rivalries. I love this question, Coca, because it's real. Let's talk what an ownership clique is. Ownership cliques manifest themselves in myriad ways. Number one, there are times when you want to get something done in baseball and you count on your friends to get the votes. If you want a rule change, if you want to do something with the commissioner, if you want to do something with marketing, with sales, with something with media, if you want to get on a committee, if you want to in any way effectuate some sort of change in Major League Baseball, it is extremely common for owners to talk amongst themselves and build a block. Building a voting block in baseball is something that Bud Selig wanted to avoid at all costs, like the plague. It's something that Rob Manfred smartly wants to avoid as well, but does it totally differently. Because when ownership has a block of votes, that can create an unnecessary distraction from the progress that the commissioner wants the sport to have. Because it could be a clique of negatives. It could be a clique of small market teams who get together and try to effectuate change in the CBA. It could be a clique of large market teams who are sick and tired of funding small market teams. Ownership blocks are differentiated from owners' cliques. An owner's clique, an owner's meeting is very much like a high school cafeteria. They assign seats at the main meeting where there are 7 rows and you've got 30 teams and you've got 2 to 4 people per team, and they rotate teams around. You're in the front row, then you're in the back row, you're in the middle row, you're on the left side, you're on the right side, stage left, stage right. You're next to this team, that team. They keep track and they can tell you over the past 25 years who sat where at every single owners meeting for a year. They like the idea of having a diverse experience where you're sitting next to a team that you haven't sat next to. Used to love that. But it was very much high schooly. When you'd walk in, you'd never know in advance because they would keep the key to themselves. And so you'd get there on the Thursday morning or Wednesday morning, whenever it was, and you would say, and you'd look like when you're going to a wedding or a bar mitzvah, like, what table am I at? Who's at my table? Have you ever gone to the table with the place cards and you've looked up and said, oh, table 4. Oh, who else is table 4? And you look. That's why I love the events where they list the names on a board of who's at your table. So you don't have to spend your time like creepily turning over names. Hey, is that person at my table? Oh, no, that person's at table 69. You've all done it. Stop it. So the owners' meetings, you have no idea. There's no key. You walk in and there's your name. Your name is there. And you can ask one of the great people in MLB special events, hi, where are the Marlins? Oh, you're just up there to the left. Thanks. Who am I next to? Oh, you're next to the White Sox. Come on, man. And then you laugh and you move on. That's not a clique. That's the beginning of a block. A clique is when you've got owners who came in together. Fred Wilpon, great owner, was part of a clique with Bud Selig. Lou Wolf, aforementioned, erstwhile Oakland A's owner, part of the Selig clique. You knew if you were an FOS. An FOS was called a friend of Selig. That's what we called it inside owners' meetings. Hey, is he a friend of Selig? You learn very quickly who the FOSs are. And that is not a shot at Bud. 91, not even close. Love you, Bud. The shot at Bud was, hey, being a friend of Bud, that's a good thing. When you're not a friend of Bud, you work hard to become a friend of Bud, and that's how you keep control and get to be commissioner for as long as Bud was commissioner. It's not unlike high school or your work area, even though some of you may be remote, you know there's some people, hey, that's a good person whose tent I should get under. That's someone who I want to avoid at all costs. It was a lot like that with FOS, Friends of Selig. You learn who they are, and then you try to become friends with one of the friends, thinking that by transitive property of friends, that you one day could become a friend of Selig. And then you realize that just because you're a friend of the person who's got the power and the control, that doesn't give you direct privity to the power and the control. So you then say, who's going to be the next commissioner? Let's see if I can be a friend of that commissioner. I'm just saying that the cliques that exist are like the cliques that you know about. They're super hard to penetrate. So you can choose to spend time doing it or figure out a better plan. Does it impact on field? Are there rivalries? Well, George Steinbrenner and Fred Wilpon were not exactly best friends. There's no question about it. I don't think that Frank McCourt and Jamie McCourt ever went out to dinner with Artie Moreno. I don't believe the Ricketts, Tom Ricketts and Jerry Reinsdorf are breaking bread every month in Gedunnerstick. But that's just a coincidence. I used to spend plenty of time with Stu Sternberg and Matt Silverman with the Tampa Bay Rays, even though to me we were competing with them for TV money. We were competing with them for Florida supremacy. We were saying, hey, if they move, we're going to own all of Florida. And they were saying, hey, if they move and don't get a stadium, we'll own all of Florida. I'm not going to say that didn't come up. We were rivalries in a sense. Teammates in a sense. You can be a teammate and a rival with somebody. It absolutely works. Owners, however, well, wait a minute. I was going to tell you that rivalries never get in the way of trades, but the Yankees and Mets went a long time without making a trade. And the Marlins went a long time without making a trade in the NL East, and so did the Expos, because we had an owner who did not want to in any way help the NL East, so felt that trading with a division partner was verboten until we convinced him, hey, you're cutting off like 4 out of 29 possible partners. That is a terrible plan. It's like 15% of the people we can deal with, you're telling us we can't deal with. And so does an owner ever get in the way and say, hey, I'm not doing this? The Red Sox and the Yankees went 17 years without making a trade. That's not a coincidence. But eventually you come to realize it's idiotic. You simply cannot cut out anybody because of a rivalry, because of jealousy, because of cliques. Cliques are very much, think about it. I want to go back to high school because everything that's great happens in high school. When you're not in a clique and you're outside of the clique and you want to be in the clique, but you can add value to the clique by doing something like letting them cheat off you or doing their homework or something like that, or going to get them their lunch or giving them your lunch money or whatever it is that you can do that would sometimes be considered being bullied and other times be considered being let into a really cool group. You can choose how you look at it. But those type of things happen all the time within the ownership ranks. Those types of actions where the young owners get hazed, the older owners, the more experienced owners are looked at as deities. I mean, I will never forget walking in my first owners meeting and looking at George Steinbrenner. George frickin' Steinbrenner was right there in front of me. Like, was this real? And then you look left and you see Jerry Reinsdorf and Fred Wilpon, the old-time owners. You're looking at Bud Selig in a room and you're thinking to yourself, this is unreal, Aaron. We're in the room where it actually happens. And then that fades. It always fades. Everything fades. That was a good question, though. Thank you. Next.
Hi, David. Hope you're having a good morning. This is Ryan from Indiana. I was calling kind of to speak on what you had mentioned last week about the NBA losing HBO, kind of Steph Curry and those comments. Is the sports world on a financial or economic bubble, if you will? With the streaming, everyone's getting a little bit more segmented, so viewers aren't hopping across and watching different sports like they were with traditional cable. And then with the economic times for a lot of people, the pay disparity between those on the field and those in the stands is growing larger and larger, causing a little bit of resentment towards sports in general from the general populace. Just like to hear your thoughts, and I know that it's hard to see a bubble coming. So, thanks. Bye.
Thank you for that question. I will only say when you're leaving voicemails, keep in mind that if you say, hey, do you remember when you said blank? Be under the working assumption that I'm full Will Ferrell from Old School during these shows, and that when the show's over, I snap out of something and I have no recollection what I said. So no, I don't remember talking about anything you just mentioned, but I certainly can talk about bubbles. And I can certainly talk about pay disparity. I want to start with that part of your question. This is an oldie but a goodie, the old pay disparity, where you are saying that how is it possible that we are watching someone get paid $50 million when we're struggling making 50 grand and we can't make rent payments and we can't make ends meet? Do you go to a movie and watch Tom Cruise? Do you go to a Taylor Swift concert? Or do you listen to Taylor Swift music? There has been a pay disparity between people who do one thing and people who do another that may be totally irrational. It may not be rational that actors make more money than teachers. It may not be rational that athletes make more money than firefighters or first responders or policemen. However, that's something that is part of our lives. It may not be rational in your company that your boss makes more money than you when you do more work than he, she, or they do, and you're better and smarter than they are, and they still make more money. It may not be rational to you that the CEO of your company is making 50 times what you're making and you're doing 100 times more work. None of that may be rational, but none of that is new. So the pay disparity today, I would tell you that my issue is that you got a lot of stinky players making a lot of money. But hey, in a salary cap world and a salary floor world, you got to pay somebody at some time because you got to get to a number. So that pay disparity between greatness, mediocrity, and crappiness, that pay disparity between athletes and fans, that pay disparity has always existed. That pay disparity will always exist because, keep in mind, whatever your job is, there's a chance that nobody wants to pay to watch you do what you do, and nobody wants to pay to broadcast what you do on television live. Possible. That's called a pay disparity. As for resentment, do yourself a favor. Be resentful of people who don't try because they're in the entertainment industry trying to do better. Be resentment of people who don't try because they don't care. They're just cashing paychecks. Be resentful of being a fan of a team that never wins in your lifetime. That's fine. But the pay disparity, that's life. 2, bubbles. Boy, if there is a topic that comes up more often in the financial world than a bubble, I don't know what it is. Maybe inverted yield curve. Bubble is a topic that when you're working on Wall Street, which I did for several years, and certainly when you're involved in Wall Street, which I've been ever since I left Wall Street. What's a bubble? Just to quickly define it for you. It's when things are so good, and then all of a sudden, what happens to every bubble? You can blow the greatest bubble with Bubble Yum or Hubba Bubba or Yabba Dabba Doo and Double Bubble, and all of a sudden it's out, growing. You think that you're going to do it. You're going to pull a little piece of gum out of your mouth with the huge bubble. You're going to put it down. You're going to play with it. It's going to be a miracle. The next thing you know, you're picking it off your nose. Playing with your kids, you're trying to make the magic bubbles, the small ones. Then you can buy one that's a huge wand that makes the biggest bubbles of all time. And you can wind it very evenly, horizontally across your body, making a huge bubble, making your child smile, thinking you're dad of the year, which of course you've never been nominated for, never won. And the bubble is so big. And then all of a sudden the kid goes up and goes, boop. And then says again. And you're like, that was the biggest bubble ever. Bubbles burst almost all the time. But there's several kinds of bursting bubbles. Sometimes a bursting bubble goes like this. That's more like deflating. Sometimes a bursting bubble goes like this. Boop. And all of a sudden, you're cleaning up shrapnel everywhere. It's in your hair. It's on your nose. It's on your cheek. You cannot believe what a mess. Other times it just floats away and it gets smaller and smaller as it goes into the atmosphere, and then it loses its air, and then it just sort of compresses. All of which can happen. When do we talk about bubbles? Housing prices. That's always a good one. We're in a housing bubble now. Everyone's house is going up, but one day it's going to go down. And when it goes down, you're going to see a movie made of it called The Big Short. It's going to be a crisis. That's a bursting housing bubble. A stock can have a bubble. Man, this stock keeps going up. At some point, it's got to go down. I mean, the fundamentals of this stock indicate that it should be trading $40 less than where it's trading. We're looking for a major adjustment, and it may happen quick, especially when it's discovered that the CEO is a criminal. That's a bursting bubble. Franchise valuations. Always, that's a popular one. Oh, they've got to be bubbling. These franchise values can't go up. $1.2 billion for the Marlins, forget it, bubble. $1.7 million for the Orioles, bubble. $6 million for the Commanders, bubble. $10 million for the Dodgers, strike that. $10 million for the Lakers, bubble. A valuation of $250 for this WNBA team, $300 million for that NWSL team, $800 million for that MLS team. Bubble, 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 trouble, double. What happens with franchises? Why is it that every single person you know is trying to own a team when they can't own a major team? Because there's rich and then there's able to buy a team rich. And I don't mean able to buy a team back in the 90s because that was a different level. This is now, there is a limited number of people who can buy one of the three major teams, NBA, MLB, and NFL. You've got to be rich like with a B. That did not used to be the case. And there were way more M's than B's, millionaires than billionaires. And therefore, it was much easier to find someone who loved sports and wanted to invest, and it was a passion play. Now, there's passion plays and there's passion plays. You spend $10 billion because of passion? Man, Mark Walters saying to himself, God, I love going to the Great Western Forum so much. I love the short shorts that James Worthy used to wear. I'm going to spend $10 billion, give it to the Bus family, let them keep control because I'm passionate. Give me a small break, would you? The reason why team valuations keep going up is that there's a limited number of them. They provide diversification for some private equity portfolios. They provide diversification and economies of scale for people who own other teams in the market, the way Mark Walter owns the Dodgers. And it becomes something where you can't expect the rate of return that the previous owners got, which is what you try to do in any other business you acquire. You try to make it better. You try to do better than the previous owner. In order to do better with the Dodgers than with the Lakers than the Bus family did, think about how much the team would have to be worth. The Bus family, let's say they held the team for 40 years, and let's say it went from $100 million to $10 billion. A quick math on that, $100 million to $200 million, that's 7 years. $200 million to $400 million, that's 7 years. $400 million to $800 million, that's 7 years. $800 million to 1.6, that's 7 years. We're now at 28 years at 1.6 billion. You can go to 3.2 billion, you're now at 35 years. You can go to 6.4 billion, you're at 42 years. Doubling your money every 7 years. That's something that you talk about with your investment advisor. That would be the plan, that you try to double your money every 7 years, assuming a certain rate of return, which I know you can assume. Very hard to do when the price of entry is where it is. Is that what causes the bubble? No. There won't be a bubble in franchise valuations because there's always going to be the next person, the next entity, the next fund. It's why you see the change in rules. Private equity is allowed all of a sudden. Well, that's not a coincidence. Private equity has to be allowed because you've got to find people who have billions and billions and billions of dollars. How do we change the rules? And all of a sudden, to be controlling owner of a team, you have to put in less money than you used to. You can have a fewer number of shares of the team than you used to. All of those rules are changing in sports because there's a limit because the valuations are so high. Therefore, if you're worried about a bubble, nah, don't worry about it. We're covered. You're good. ROI, not as good. All right, what else, Coca?
Hi, David. This is Pete in California. Recently, Major League Baseball had its Speedway Classic, and over the recent years, MLB has had several games at non-MLB stadiums, whether it be in another country or, say, the Field of Dreams game What are some of the ones during your time in baseball that were rejected, and what are some ones of those types of events that you would like to see in the future? Thank you.
That's a good one, Coco. We started that, as you remember, the non-MLB field games. The first one, if you go back, Coco, I don't remember the year, but I was a part of it. It was at Fort Bragg. It may have been 2014, 15, 16. I can't remember what year it was. But we did a game in Fort Bragg where they built a stadium, and it was amazing. All the service people were there, and their families got to watch the game. We did a quick clinic. It was fantastic. I can't remember who we played, and I can't remember. It may have been the Braves. Is there a chance, Coca, that the Marlins played the Braves in Fort Bragg? I have no idea why that would be in my head, but it's possible. In any case, I don't know if you... 2016, the Marlins and the Braves played in Fort Bragg. So this came up with Tony Petitti, who is now the commissioner of the Big Ten. He used to run the MLB Network, and he and Rob Manfred and Pat Courtney and Noah Garden and Dan Helm, everyone would get together, and at the time there was Chris Marinak, and there were a bunch of people involved. And the thought was, what do we do to add value to our networks? We're trying to build up audience. We're trying to get jewel events and not just the World Series, the playoffs, and the All-Star game and opening day. How can we own another day? And the thought was, let's take a game and put it in a place where games aren't normally played, see if we can draw a crowd, but the crowd is far less important, it was discovered, than drawing the attention of the networks. Because the crowd at Fort Bragg, it was a small stadium. The crowd in Williamsport, where they played a game where the Little League World Series was, full of Little Leaguers, there were very few people in the stands. The opposite of Bristol, where they went for the largest attendance ever and got it. Over 90,000 people went to that game just this year. And so what they all had in common was not attendance. What they all had in common is they were carried by the broadcaster, either ESPN or Fox, as an exclusive window, as a national game that particular night. And that is how you extract more value. When we were coming up with lists, because this takes years, you don't just say, hey, we're going to do a game at Bristol. All right, call up Bristol. Hey, by the way, we'll be there in 6 months. Are we good? You talk to Murray Cook, the guy who helps build the field. It's a nightmare. The amount of millions of dollars you have to spend to put a baseball stadium in the middle of a racetrack, or just build a baseball stadium in the middle of an army base, don't kid yourself. You have to do things that the union will approve. So you have to make major league ready clubhouses, but they're like acting trailers. And I think we all know, if we've been in a trailer, that you can make a trailer super nice, but it's still a trailer. You can make a hotel room amazing, like the best hangover suite at Caesars in the world, and you put Tyson in there with the tiger, and you make a memory, but it's still not home. And so the players at all times are a part of what is built during these off-site games. Very complicated, very expensive. Now, the good news is that every off-site game is going to be marketed the same going forward to the union. They're going to call up the union. Hey, Tony, we got an off-site game. Guess what? The facilities are better than Sacramento. That's it. That's the new mic drop in baseball. All you have to do is say it's better than Sacramento, and the union is like, oh, good. Can you imagine calling up Tony Clark and saying, Tony, we're going to do a game. Now, this is funny what we're going to do. We're going to do it on a floating barge. Don't think we didn't think of it, because we did. We thought that would be unbelievable, like a big cruise ship type thing where you can float something out there right off the coast, and all of a sudden you're playing a game in the water on a floating stadium. Thought of it. Clubhouse issue, grant you. However, you can't call up the union and say, hey, we're going to float this idea by you. We're going to play a game, and no one's going to get seasick. We'll have a little Dramamine patch. It'll totally work fine. But the clubhouse situation is worse than Sacramento. Click. That'd be the end of that. I loved the floating idea. That was a special one. I loved the idea of a crowd of, we were trying to build there was a time in baseball, which still exists today. Can I say this, Coca? Well, I Okay, this was me. I'm not going to implicate anyone else. This was all me thinking, hey, we need more women to be fans of baseball. So there was a thought, why don't we do a baseball game where it's all women? We only have women in the stands, and we do in-game entertainment. We do everything that's catered toward building a fan base that is only women. From all of these thoughts came all the heritage nights that happen around baseball. Dominican night and Israel night and Puerto Rican night, all of it, because what we're trying to do is we're trying to get fan bases into the ballpark a day they can call their own and hope it bleeds to other games, other days where they'll watch more games, pay for more games, come to more games. And if you're going to do it with heritages, why not do it with sexes? We have it. Side note, we do all sorts of stuff in a ballpark. Hey, that's a singles section. We're doing a singles night. Hey, that's a Ashley Madison section. I mean, we're thinking of things and trying to do things as often as possible in order to attract demographics that we don't normally attract. When we sit with a broadcaster and we say to the broadcaster, what is it you want? We want to deliver it for you. Tell me, is there anything? Here's the irony of what the broadcaster generally says. Well, if you can do something that we can market as just different, so it's not game 132 of 162, then that's good enough for us. And when that's your bar, it's hard to jump over it by a huge amount because you're saying to yourself, that seems like a waste. It's like when you take a pass-fail test and you only need a 66 to pass and you get a 98. What? You totally wasted your time. You only needed a 67. The whole difference between 67 and 98 was just wasted time. Joe Walsh style. I love these games, speaking of your question, and there's going to be more. I can promise you that. There's going to be more. If you're asking me where would I like to see a game, this one's going to make you smile. I'd like to see a game put in every city that could be an expansion city, because I want those cities to be so lathered up and so excited that a game is there that they're going to want to build an amazing ballpark for nothing and have an expansion fee that's greater than any expansion fee. So if I were to choose where to have these out-of-market games, quote unquote, I would look at each one of from Vancouver to San Antonio to Nashville to Montreal to Oakland. I would look and put games there. That's just me. What else, Coca?
Hello, David. I was just curious, as a Braves fan, what would be the purpose of them ramping up or having Chris Sale throw in the minor leagues when the season's pretty much over? Is it just to get him some more throws, or are they planning on long-term signing him to extension after the season? Thank you.
Thank you for that question. When a player's hurt, you have to get them back in order to get them off workers' comp and to get them off the injured list, which is a major goal, because when players are on the injured list, you're actually not just paying their salary, but there's workers' comp involved. And so what you have to do is prove that the player is back ready to play. You don't have to ever play him, and the player doesn't have to be good, and the player may never play again. But if you can get to the point where it's not long-term disability, meaning that, hey, this guy can hit. He stinks, but this guy is game ready. That's what we used to call it. You do that. So it doesn't matter that the Braves are out of the race, which they are. It doesn't matter that Sale should not be rushed back, which he shouldn't. What you do want to do, though, is prove health. You want to prove that he's game ready, because that's beneficial to the operation of your team. So when you're ramping up someone like Chris Sale, you're doing it so he can be game ready. That was a good one, though. No one's ever asked me that question. We are ramping up. If you go down, quick side note, Coca, if you go to our spring training home during the course of a season, because we were in Miami and our spring training was in Jupiter, all but 1 year when it was in Vieira, right when I got there. We moved that to Jupiter super fast. Meanwhile, Vieira is amazing, but just much further away. And that is where a lot of rehab happens. So if you ever were feeling down about yourself, you would go to Jupiter and you'd feel so good, because you'd walk into the training room and to the rehab and the weight room and you'd see all your guys. And you say, hey, good to see you, man. What's shaking? How you doing? You getting close? I got a piece of paper here that says you are 6 days away. Are you ready to throw off a mound? Ready? Come on. You're hitting off a tee. You ready to face some live BP? Join us. Come join us in Miami. We totally miss you. Or I'd be there saying, hey, don't miss you. Can't wait for you to prove you're healthy so we can take you off the injured list and then release you or option you. That's the thing with young players, Coca. You can't option them when they're hurt, but when they prove health and they're game ready again, you can activate them off the injured list and then immediately option them down to the minor leagues. That's a rule. Thank you. That's a very good question. I want to get to one more, Coca, if we can.
Hello, David. Tad from Spokane, long-suffering Mariners fan. A number of years ago, my wife purchased a cameo from you for my birthday about the Mariners, and you talked at some length about Ichiro's relationship with the team. Given the strength of this last weekend and the fact that he shows up for nearly every home game and dresses with the team and works out with the team, what's the upside potential? What's the long-term vision? And what, in your opinion, is the ideal role for Ichiro in the Mariners organization and in Major League Baseball? Thank you.
Well, thank you for that cameo. I am on Cameo. I'm happy to give birthday wishes to whoever you want. I enjoy that. It's funny. And I do them and I respond. Ichiro. My ideal role for Ichiro, President of the United States. What else would be an ideal role for him? Commissioner of Baseball for sure. Owner of a major league team. I'd like him to be the starting right fielder currently of 27 of the 30 major league teams. I'd have him batting right now 8th or 9th because at 50 years old, I want him at the bottom of the lineup, getting on base to set up the top of the lineup. So I got a lot of interesting things that I would say that Ichiro could do. But what is he doing now? He's unreal. He gets dressed every day in Seattle, and he has the eyes and ears of those Mariners players on him. They watch him work, and he works. He's the throwing partner to Julio Rodriguez, for crying out loud. He's tossed him from 120 at the age of 50 like he's 27 years old. Never seen anything like it. I have a catch with my son in my dreams at 20 feet, and my arm falls off. So the reason they have Ichiro back is that he's iconic, and the reason they're giving him a statue is he deserves it. The reason they retired his number is he's the best number 51 with Randy Johnson, who ever played for the Seattle Mariners. The reason he's in Cooperstown is because he's the Hall of Famer of the Hall of Famers. So if you're an organization, you definitely keep him around. If you can have Hall of Famers like Andre Dawson and Tony Perez around your team, you do it. So I have no question that Ichiro will be around there as long as he wants to be, which from Ichiro's standpoint could be forever. I can picture Ichiro dressing for 20 more years and going out there the way he works out every day, the way he stays healthy and strong and fit. It's remarkable. And when players see that, believe me, when you see someone older doing a bunch of stuff and you're sitting on your keister doing nothing, you begin to feel like crap. And you're like, wait a minute, if this guy can do it, then of course I can do it. So therefore, I'm going to work harder. That's one of the great benefits that Ichiro has. Show me by example, not by your words, by your actions. But even with Ichiro's words, he's able to have relationships with the players. Ichiro can relate to 20-year-olds, 40-year-olds, 60-year-olds, 80-year-olds. It's a remarkable talent the guy has. And he does it in several languages, which is also remarkable. Not just Japanese, English, Spanish. He can do all sorts of stuff with your team. And in terms of you being a long-suffering Mariners fan, because you don't have a ring, I'm sorry. That is rough. And, you haven't been to a World Series? That is rough. Could it change this year? You got Suarez. You never know. They actually really are good. Could they actually possibly beat could the Mariners catch the Astros and win the pennant? Could you see Ichiro get his first World Series ring? God, that would be amazing. But for you fans, Mike Stanton would be able to celebrate a World Series and look at you and say, it's just business. Congratulations. This is nothing personal.